Hey, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Okay. So, let's talk about my timing versus God's timing. Ain't that good? Ain't that good? Ain't it like us? Matter of fact, raise your hands in the comments. Who would rather have things on their timing so their lives can be the way you envision instead of in the way that God envisioned? Raise your hand. I raise my hand. I raise my hand. Okay. Don't it seem like sometimes he just be taking so long, right? How many of y'all, raise your hands in the comments, how many of y'all feel like sometimes God be just taking long for the promise to come to pass? He be taking long to take vengeance on the people that do us wrong. He be taking long to do it, right? So this morning, God has to remind me, like, this is on my timeline, Erica, not yours. And I was like, dang, Jesus, wait a minute. And he reminded me, like, you want it on your timing, but we still developing. David, and right now I'm reading the book of First Samuel. I'm reading First Samuel, Second Samuel. I'm almost done with First Samuel. And it's been so good. I mean, it's really been so good. And he reminded me, like, David could not rush being in position of being king. He could not rush that because he still needed to be developed. So there was no such thing as instant gratification because he would still need to develop. When he got anointed, he didn't even understand. He was a shepherd boy. So I said, okay. So he was like, you cannot rush my timing. You have to trust God's timing because God is always, always on time. And so I was like, okay. And so he just reminded me, like, I'm always on time. When you thinking I'm not on time and whatever it is that you are praying about and it comes through, you be like, oh God, right on time. Ain't that our response? Put it in the comments like, yep. Because that be our response, like, oh, God is so good because he was right on time with that blessing, or he was right on time with that finances, he was right on time with this. But during the process of trusting his timing, because trusting God's timing is a part of the process. And during the process, it'd be like, bruh, why do I seem like I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting? So I'm here today on this good old Tuesday morning to let you know you're not the only one that is waiting for it to come to pass. You're not the only one that's waiting for God, what he promised you to come to pass. You're not the only person that is waiting. No, as his word says, it is not in vain. If you faint not, it is not in vain. For in due season you shall reap a harvest. See, a lot of times, because the world says the harvest time is in October, right? So you did all this work in the summertime, so the harvest time is in October. So that's when I should be reaping stuff in October, but you're still not trusting God's timing. You're still not trusting God's timing with what he entrusted you with because you still got your own timeline in your head. Now, don't get me wrong. If there are things that you need to finish, like for instance, there is a project I'm working on right now that I do need to complete and finish, and I was working on it yesterday. So if there are things, yes, that you need to finish and complete, then yes, absolutely, finish them, complete them, follow through on it, be obedient in finishing the product, be obedient in doing the marketing strategy or whatnot. If you're just a one right now, see, sometimes we want the team when we're not ready to handle the team. David was a shepherd all by himself. All by himself. I guess it's going to be a full video, y'all. I wasn't explaining, but I just want to encourage you with this morning, because God reminded me of it this morning. Like, David was a shepherd by himself. Wasn't nobody help him take care of the sheep? Now, when he had to go and run an errand or go to the palace, yeah, he put somebody in charge of the sheep that he was training. But what I noticed is that when David was called to play for King Saul, he would be done playing for him, and then run back out to the field and go back home to the field before he became the warrior. I never saw that. Before he became commander of Saul's army, David would go back home and actually tend to the sheep. He was still being a shepherd. He was still being obedient. And because David was still being a shepherd, he didn't leave that position until another position had opened up. And that's when not only was he playing for Saul, but he also was Saul's commander of his army. So he still had two positions. And so he couldn't rush that. He couldn't rush those positions. He couldn't rush being king. He couldn't rush any of those things. And so God started to just develop him by himself. Some of us want a team, but you're not ready to be a team yet. You got to know the work it puts in for your business. And maybe I'm just talking to myself, because if you could relate, baby, put an amen in the comments. But you're not ready. You're not ready. And it doesn't say that you cannot be, that you're not a leader and that you'll be a great leader. King David, to this very day, he's the greatest king that Israel has ever had. Why? Because he was a king. He was a man after God's own heart. With his mistakes and flaws and all, he still was one who was after God's own heart until he took his last breath. So, absolutely, you're going to go through trials and tribulations. But I want to encourage you that you cannot rush. Allow for God to develop you by yourself when you're one. He said, be faithful over a few. Be faithful over you before he can make you ruler over many. Be blessed. Bye.